Cameras are a chief vehicle in creating great 3D animation because cameras are a great vehicle in telling a great story. And if you think about it, it's usually the view through the camera that tells your story. Think of cameras as a viewer's window into your environment, the story that you're creating, the scene that you've made. And in the same way that lights aid us in telling our story, so too do cameras as well. Let's go to the exercise files. Let's open up chapter 13. Basically, these are a couple pictures of Herbie the robot, and they are renders taken from different angles. Let's see what it looks like when the camera is placed above Herbie looking down. Herbie looks so poor and lonely sitting there by himself, doesn't he? Are you there, God? It's me, Herbie. And so shooting a character with the camera above it tends to minimize or demean a character, to make them seem weak or fragile, helpless, and that type of thing. However, if we take the same model and place a camera below it looking up, we get a much different feel. Now, this is the same model, but Herbie looks very powerful, majestic, triumphant, and all those type of things. And I realized that he would probably look more powerful if he had hands, but there's no hands. Still, though, he just looks more majestic, more respectable, more like a hero. And you see these camera angles used all the time in Hollywood. I remember in Spider-Man 2, when Peter Parker had his girlfriend stolen by Dr. Octopus, and he had his big Popeye moment, his "I've taken all I can stands and I can't stands no more." And so he stood up and he threw off his glasses, and the camera angle was from the bottom looking up, and boy, he just looked so tough. And it wasn't really that it was Peter Parker, the king of the nerds, looking tough. It was the camera angle that made him seem so powerful. Now again, just like with lights and with color, there's way too much about blocking, in other words, setting stuff in your scene and positioning cameras and all that kind of stuff to cover here. But if you really want to become a scholar on this subject, I recommend becoming a student of Alfred Hitchcock films. Hitchcock was a master of using camera angles to tell a story. If you watch Alfred Hitchcock's classic horror film Psycho, you'll see how he uses cameras all over the place. Psycho is actually a movie about this guy that runs a hotel, in case you haven't seen it. And sometimes he seems like a really nice guy, and sometimes he had these fits of psychosis where he thought he was his mom and he would kill people, and it was this big mess. But the thing about the movie was that everybody had a little bit of a psychosis. There wasn't any heroes in the movie. Everybody was good sometimes and bad other times. And so Hitchcock would film people split in half. I remember this one scene where the main actress in the film was sitting in her car and she was parked. I remember thinking how unusual it was that it was filmed in a way that there was a telephone pole right in the middle of her car. But it was all about the camera angle. Hitchcock intentionally positioned the camera so that the telephone pole would seem to split the car in two. It wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. And the camera angle was telling the story. That in the same way the car seemed to be split in two, so too does everyone's personalities seem to be split in two. Hence the psychosis. Now let's move along and actually talk about creating cameras in Max.